Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Wow, I feel like being at a concert. I saw the lines way down in the back. I hope you all got to attend Satya's keynote earlier this morning, walking away full of optimism for what GenAI can do for your organization. My name is Dorothy Li, and I lead product engineering for Security Copilot, which is Microsoft's Copilot to help safeguard every organization on the planet. We have an exciting session for you today. Joining me on stage later will also be my head of product, Dilip Radhakrishnan. He will be on stage to talk about a lot of the new product announcements that we will be coming very soon. And last but not least, we have a special guest, Emily Longman, who heads SOC for Oregon State University. Emily will be having a fireside chat with me to talk about real-world use cases for how her team uses Copilot today to help protect the university. We have a packed agenda for you today, so for those of you that are coming in, feel free to fill the seats in the front. We still have many seats in the front. Let's get started. How many of you here are from security SOC? I see a few hands. How many of you are from IT? And how many of you are just curious about what Security Copilot can do? I hope all of you, everyone, should be raising your hand. And I'm going to talk about, before we talk about what Security Copilot is and is not, I want to just frame this in the challenges we're facing today, especially for defenders. And this is a challenge I think you all, especially for those of you SOC, are very familiar with. Today, the speed, scale, and sophistication of cyber attacks are escalating at an unprecedented rate. And whenever I talk to customers, there's a universal theme. Customers tell us that they're overwhelmed by the number of alerts, incidents, and they don't have enough resource to respond. Who here feel like they have enough resource? I don't think I've ever met a customer that says that we have more resources than we need. And it is also a very well-known fact that there is a global shortage of cybersecurity professionals, almost 5 million professionals. And so security teams are overwhelmed by these large number of threats. And we need a new approach. So how do we tip the scale in favor of defenders? How do we scale humans more effectively and strategically? We need a new way of approaching this problem, where AI and humans working together as co-pilots, helping us change the rules and turn the games in our favor. However, unlike productivity use cases, applying AI to security has its unique challenges. Now, we all know that cybersecurity relies on real-time signals to detect and analyze threats, not on pre-trained knowledge. Investigative reasoning is not linear, right? AI will need to pivot across many data points, just as our human analysts do. And precision is absolutely critical, right? Every conclusion needs to be supported by solid evidence. So applying security to AI, it's about real-time signals, sifting through all the data and to find that needle in a haystack, investigative reasoning, and precision. And this is where the scale of Microsoft really comes into play. With our partnership with OpenAI, we offer the most advanced AI model available. But it's not just about the AI model. It's also about this force multiplier when you're applying state-of-the-art model to Microsoft's scale, to our vast portfolio of products from Defender, Sentinel, to Purview, Intune, and Entra, where we have a vast, the most amount of visibility to your data. And this is why we conceived Security for Copilot. When we started Security for Copilot, we really started with one simple but powerful idea. What if we could take Microsoft's scale and use the power of GenAI or LLMs to really help defenders finally tip the game in your favor? We launched it in April of this year. We've since learned a lot from our customers. And we know that GenAI and transforming your organization with AI takes not just technology, but it's also a cultural shift, and it's a mindset shift. So we started with our early access program to learn from customers. How many of you were here for our early access program? Thank you very much, and we've learned so much from our customers. Even for such a young product, we've already are seeing that Copilot, when deployed with practical use cases tailored to your environment, is already having an impact in your organization. And we recently did a study that found that about 3 months after you adopt Copilot, we're getting almost 30% reduction in mean time to resolution, right? 30%, if you think about it. An analyst spends about 2.7 hours per day on an incident. And if you multiply that, that is a lot of hours saved. So we've made it super easy for teams to interact with Copilot in the way that makes the most sense for their workflows. And we offer 2 modes. We offer an immersive or standalone model where we bring together our products and end-to-end consolidated experience into this one standalone portal. We also know that customers like to be in the flow. So we have this embedded experience that allows you to have Copilot on the side like an intelligent assistant right there at your fingertips. The bottom line is that Copilot can bring value to every member of your security and IT teams. We started with SOC use cases, but we've found that since then, a broad range of professionals from security, from SOC to data security admins to IT admins are all using Copilot, sometimes in ways we didn't even expect. Within the SOC, it delivers insights from junior analysts to CISOs. And outside, we find, especially also coming down, you'll see Dilip showing that we have a number of use cases to help data security admins with DLP policy understanding, with data posture management, as well as skills and use cases with IT policy in Entra and Intune as well. Without further ado, to show how these new product announcements and new features are integrated into our products is Dilip.
Thank you, Dorothy. Hey, folks, are you ready for some demos? So what I would love to do is, in the next 20 minutes, quickly walk you through 10 sets of real-world customer use cases, how customers are using Security Copilot, and then you'll be able to take it back and immediately apply it to your day-to-day jobs. So I want to set the context. There are going to be 4 sets of demo categories. One is we're going to start with what are the valuable use cases that Security Copilot when you have to do automation in your SOC. So that's the first category of demos. The second one we'll talk about, as Dorothy said, how do we expand and the value of Security Copilot, whether you're an Entra admin, Intune admin, and Purview admin. So what does Security Copilot offer there? The third category is the core Security Copilot platform, the AI platform, the new capabilities that are powering the services that we offer. How do you control and manage that? And then the last category is about third-party ISVs and the ecosystem around Security Copilot, because pretty much everybody here has a heterogeneous SOC, so we cannot just have a Security Copilot product that's only working for Microsoft products. So we have some cool announcements there as well. So without further ado, let's go into the first bucket. How can you use Security Copilot to automate tasks today? There are three main capabilities, because a lot of people have this misconception that Security Copilot, it's like a chat GPT interface. You go in and start working and ask questions and getting responses, but that's not the only way. Security Copilot is a platform that powers pretty much all the security services from Microsoft. So if you go into the Defender console, the first bucket, the SOC enhancements that you see is you can go into the Defender portal. Every incident, you can see an automatic summarization by Copilot. It does a lot of enrichment of data from multiple sources and has it available straight for you to cut down the time it takes to investigate an incident. Second, a lot of our customers are Sentinel customers who use logic apps with Sentinel. So what we have done is done deep integration of Security Copilot with logic apps, and I'll show some cool demos of how you can use prompt books and invoke those prompt books from logic apps. And last but not least, a lot of our customers also get a lot of value out of Security Copilot because of the threat intelligence that the service provides. I don't know if many of you are aware, we acquired a company called RiskIQ. We branded that service, the threat intelligence service, as MDTI, Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence, and that comes built in with Security Copilot. So even if you buy one SU at $4 per hour, you're able to immediately take advantage of that, and your analysts can start looking at all kinds of threats and the information and how it correlates to your environment. Okay, let's get started with the first demo. So any security incident, what's the first thing you do? You want to know who's the user, what's the impact. So in Security Copilot, we have a concept of a prompt book. A prompt book is nothing but a collection of prompts, a chain of thought to achieve a particular scenario goal. So we have a library of those prompt books. So you can come in and you can search for these prompt books, and I'm going to look for what kind of prompt books are there for user analysis. And there you see there's a prompt book that we have built, and it ships. You can take it, customize it. So when you go and look into the prompt book, here are the things it does. It's very simple. You start with collecting who's the user UPN, and immediately we can go in and say, what are all the devices that were associated with this particular user? You can pull this data from Intune. Show me the last login information so that for the last 7 days, what happened for this particular user, what authentication methods were used. Was it using Authenticator app on an iPhone device, or is it using Windows Hello for Business? So what was the way that the user is doing authentication? And were there any failed sign-in attempts for this user on any of their devices? I also want to collect audit logs from these devices. And from Purview, I want to go and get a list of activities that this user performed in the last 7 days. So you can see how quickly we can add value. There's not a single line of code you had to write here. Earlier, you had to have pretty complicated apps and logic that you have to write, go call APIs of different services and collect this information. But this is anybody who's a security specialist can now string together these kinds of prompts and collect the information. So now that you have this kind of a prompt book, you can customize it, add your own content to it. But then how do you trigger it into your automation workflow? So the simple way to do that is you come into Sentinel. You have logic apps. I'm assuming like a lot of you are familiar with logic apps. So what you can do in this workflow, what I've done is taken every Microsoft Sentinel incident, and I want to make sure that I append and use this prompt book and use the information about the user and add it to the incident. So all you have to do is run the Security Copilot prompt book. We have built a connector, a logic app connector, that will now let you connect and call prompt books straight from your logic apps. So you run the Copilot prompt book, summarize it, and add it as a comment to the incident. And what that gives you is immediately when the analyst opens the incident, it has all the relevant information about who's the user, which devices were they accessing from. Pretty much everything that you saw in the prompt book is kind of already being collected and given as information to the user. So as you can see how powerful this is, well, we moved from heavy code to low code to pretty much no code in terms of how you write your prompts, and that's the power of AI and Security Copilot. So not only is this information in the Sentinel logs, but it also shows up in your Defender console as a part of the activity logs as well. So any automation that you build in Sentinel with Copilot is applicable for both Sentinel and Defender. Moving on, you've now got the user information, but when we talk to our customers, there are certain types of incident that keeps happening repeatedly that consume a lot of their bandwidth of their analysts. For example, one particular customer had this failed logon attempts, which means somebody tried to type a password. Maybe it was an incorrect password. They forgot their password. They do it 2 times, 3 times, and then it triggers an alert. And now a customer, a large enterprise customer I was working with, had 30 of these alerts a day. And it takes them anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes to triage and make a determination whether that's a real issue or is it a benign false positive. And 98% of those issues were people just forgetting their passwords or they just didn't know what they were doing there. So a huge amount of time sink. It's almost like one SOC analyst was spending 8 man-days a month of work on that. Let's see how Copilot can help. Once again, we built a prompt book called Failed Login Attempts. So what we did was we had to filter the list of incidents in Sentinel. So we have a KQL query that goes and filters the list and picks only those incidents that are related to failed login attempts. And then we've done some enhancements and enrichment. So let's go and take a look at what happens once again. Same pattern. Create the prompt book, come to Logic Apps, invoke the prompt book. And once you do it, the variation I've done here is I want the SOC analyst to focus on the high value, high priority sign-in failures, not every issue. So what the prompt book does is actually generate a finding that shows of all the tickets that came in, here are the specific users that were the most problematic and have a high risk. So this gives information for the SOC analyst to go and just prioritize these tickets first, rather than getting to it at the end of a shift. So that's, again, another use case. We've seen that we're able to cut down the time it takes for triage from more than 15 to 30 minutes to less than 4 minutes, and that is a huge saving in terms of SOC operations for this customer. And so you now get the pattern, right? So you take a scenario or a problem, start creating and crafting prompts, create the prompt books, and then start plugging into automations. The third thing that is very commonly used in Security Copilot is a lot of incidents have a script associated with it, and the analyst has to make a determination as to whether it's a malicious script or not. And again, what happens here is a lot of time is spent by the analyst because they have to go figure out, is there a significant amount? First of all, it might be encoded, so they have to decode it and find out what exactly is the script doing, what APIs is it calling, is it malicious or not, is there any known threat intelligence associated with this particular issue? So once I do that, all this is getting covered in the prompt book. And I've made a slight change in my workflow here. So when an incident comes, we check to see if there's a script existing. If yes, then invoke this particular prompt book, pass the parameters, run the analysis, and once again give the report. If there's no script, just move on. So what we have done is when the customer runs it, you can get and see that there was a PowerShell script which was encoded in base 64. And what it was doing is it was calling a function what was obtaining a user's PRT, a primary refresh token. So this looks a little suspicious, and we want to find out where it's doing it from, whether there any threat intelligence associated with it. And we also give you a set of response actions on how to go try to investigate further or mitigate this issue. So that's the power of automation. So think of Security Copilot not just as a side helper, but you can actually embed this. Customers are actively using this in their automations in SOC. This is how AI is transforming the SOC operations. But it's not enough that we have to have you do all this on Logic Apps. We want to build some of these capabilities straight into the Sentinel portal. As most of you know, we've combined Sentinel and Defender. We've got this unified solution, Defender USX. A lot of our customers already moved there, great. But there are still some customers who are only using Sentinel, or they're not using our XDR stack, so they live and breathe in the Sentinel world. So we hope at some day they'll use the full Defender portal, but until that's happening, we want to meet the customers where they are. So we are introducing this kind of incident summarization that I talked about straight into the Sentinel portal. So work's already happening right now. So we expect that later this quarter we will ship it. So stay tuned for the announcements on when that's available. So if you're a Sentinel customer, this is going to be a huge value to you. OK, now you saw how we are doing automations with Copilot in the SOC. But what about beyond SOC use cases? So at the keynote, there was an announcement around data security posture management. So if you're a Purview customer interested in data security use cases, there is a public preview that was announced today. So I'm going to show a quick demo of that. If you're an Intune administrator that's using Intune to do real-time checks on vulnerabilities, or you're going to troubleshoot your PCs and mobile devices, that's another use case where Copilot can help. And in Entra, of course, identity is deeply, deeply tied to security. It's one of the fundamental stacks. So we'll talk about how Copilot is helping Entra use cases as well. So first, let's start with data security posture management. If you come into the Purview portal, for the first time, we are introducing this capability. What DSPM does is bring the best of 3 really cool Purview data compliance technologies together. So it's like data security technologies together. One is Microsoft Information Protection, MIP, DLP, data leak prevention, and we also have insider risk management, IRM. So earlier, they used to be all siloed, but now they're all under one common data lake, and we are able to build AI services on top of that to power it. So one of the things we can help an analyst who's investigating data security incidents is to prompt them, and we have a whole bunch of 100+ suggested prompts that you can get and start using out of the box. OK, I have a project Obsidian, which is a critical SharePoint site. Which sensitive files were shared outside this org in the last week? Let me go quick. Immediately when I click on that, we have the Copilot launched within the experience in Purview, embedded on the right side, and then it gives you the answer. Here are 3 files that were shared outside. And we don't stop there. We know where the line of investigation is going. So we do something called suggested prompts. So if you see the bottom, we actually give you additional tips to help you with the investigation. You can say, do you know what the labels are on those files? And yeah, that would be cool to know. And I can see that there are 2 files with the general label. Somebody was shipping their resume. It's a non-business content, so we don't worry about it. But it could be possible that if I was an insider, a malicious insider, one of the things that they do is change the label, right? So I want to know what were all the list of label downgrades that happened before files were copied. So once again, Copilot comes and says, here are all the last 30 days files where there was a downgrade of the label that happened. And then when you're able to not just give this file information, but we want to tie it back into some policies, because in this tenant, we have noticed that customer has not turned on a capability called adaptive protection. So we give a recommendation, say, hey, maybe you want to turn this on. Because what adaptive protection does is bring the best of insider risk management, IRM, and DLP together into one experience. So the moment that you see that a user's risk level is increasing for whatever reason, maybe they're leaving the company and they're copying some files over, the moment that we detect that there is a risk, it immediately dynamically changes the DLP policies to start blocking some of these data exfiltration. So again, this is the power of Security Copilot, enabling your day-to-day use cases with data security. There's, again, a lot of Copilot powering data governance and other capabilities in Purview as well. So I would urge you to take a look at it. The next thing that we do is jumping into an IT admin experience, the persona, and getting the list of things that I can do there. There are 2 main use cases in Intune that you can see that where Copilot is really useful. A lot of customers, right, so moved from group policy to cloud with Intune. They have hundreds and thousands of knobs. They don't know which knobs are relevant. So policy management is a great area where Copilot becomes a helper, and troubleshooting or doing quick analysis. For example, suddenly the IT team will get an alert from security team. Hey, there's a vulnerability here. Tell me which machines are patched. So immediately that will trigger a workflow. So for that to happen, I can come into Security Copilot. And we are happy to announce today that we are introducing this feature called multi-device query, which means you could have 50 devices, you could have 50,000 devices. I can draft a query with Security Copilot in Intune and get real-time data from all those devices. So here I have a query that's saying how many devices are running this Windows version that's not been patched in the last 20 days. So what we do is immediately help you generate a KQL query for it. So you can take this query, so you don't have to write your own custom query. So you have all this information. You can either use this query in your automation scripts, or you can directly run it in the console. So we want to say, add it to the editor and run it. So what happens is right immediately, out of those 50,000 devices, I get, OK, here are the 6 devices that are missing this critical patch. So what you saw here in this demo was an example of Copilot. People think it's like ChatGPT. It's just giving some answers. It's not text-based. It is in context of your admin experience. It not only gave the response, but it actually made it clickable and linkable inside your Intune admin experience here. So I can actually go and click on those devices, see what's happening, or I can even trigger device actions. I can say that you can go in and trigger a restart on these machines, or try to deploy a particular patch on those machines. So it's completely actionable intelligence powered by Copilot. So expanding the same into Entra as well. So what you see with Microsoft Entra is a very popular use case is risky users. Why are these users risky? What is happening? Again, we applied the same pattern. Copilot is built into the Entra portal on the right pane. We have announced public preview today, so it's out there, so try it out. So you can go in and write a query that says, show me all the risky users. And not only we gave the information about who's the risky user, once again, it's actionable. When I click on Serena here, who's an at-risk user, it directly takes me to the identity protection blade with that particular user. And it's actually, Copilot has already done the work for you. It's summarized, because what do you want to know first? Why is this user risky? So we've detected that there's a potential adversary in the middle attack here. So we want to go in and say, what's happening? And then one of the immediate questions the customer would have is, OK, what changed? Before this alert, what was the sign-in experience? So I can ask that question, show me the sign-in 1 day before this event. So then I can go in and see all the access that happened with this particular user. She was really using it regularly from Kirkland with this Windows browser. Was there anything anomalous? So it now has helped me set a baseline for what the experience for this user was. So now I have that. The next step would be to go in and figure out if it was a potential attacker, has the MFA methods, there was no manipulation of the MFA methods, right? We want to make sure there was no attempt from the attacker to secure persistence on the account. So that's very critical. So what we have done here is to, again, prove that out. What were the current MFA factors? Have they been tampered with? And I feel good now this has not been touched. So I still have to go in and figure out what are all the things I have to do about it. So there's a whole remediation workflow given on steps to mitigate this incident. So what you saw so far was we started with how do you do automations in the SOC, and then how do you take that benefit of Security Copilot and propagate it across all your security tools that your enterprise is using. Now let's talk about the core platform and the enhancements we've done there to power it. For example, we moved from GPT 3.5 to GPT 4.0. We're seeing a huge improvement in the response quality, and also it's significantly reduced the latencies. So we've announced 4 new features today. We have a blog post out here today. So one of the challenges our customers expressed is, hey, I don't know where to start. I want to go, how do I write prompt? Not everybody's a prompt engineer, and just because you can write a ChatGPT prompt doesn't mean you're a security prompt engineer. So there's a lot of capabilities that the community has created, a lot of good prompts. So we have a new library we are introducing. We'll also talk about usage dashboard auditing and multi-workspace. So in terms of the prompt library, this was the problem that we had. First, we used to just give you a direct, hey, go write your prompt, just like ChatGPT. Sorry. Instead, what we have now done is created a whole library curated based on the persona and the role, so that people who are getting exposed to Security Copilot can look at it for the first time. So I can filter by the role. I might be the Chief Information Security Officer. I want to know what's the overall state of my environment, what's my security posture, or it could be an IT admin in Intune, or it could be a SOC analyst. So we've curated a set of prompts that are very commonly used by our customers so that everybody gets a head start on day 0. So for example, I can filter by the threat analyst role. Maybe I keep hearing the news about this midnight blizzard. What is this particular midnight blizzard, tell me more about it, or how is it impacting my enterprise? Or I could do it on some other prompts like, hey, what are the impact threats that are actively impacting my healthcare industry? So there are a lot of such use cases that you can think of where you can go in and write these pre-canned prompts and start using it. So I showed a set of prompt books at the start of the demos. So we have a library of those prompt books. This is where actually you as a community really can help, because there's so much IP that this community creates. So we have an Azure GitHub site. There's a link at the end of the deck, a QR code, so you can click on it, and you can actually get access to all these prompts, prompt libraries out of the box that can really accelerate your AI journey here. So moving on, the last two demos here on customers obviously want to deploy this at scale in an enterprise, so they want rich auditing. So what we have done is integrated with Microsoft Purview, so you can give a date range, specific user. You can see all the actions that that particular user did, how did they interact with Copilot. And this becomes even more important as you start doing more and more automations, because you want to keep track of automations, what account was used, so you don't want any compromises going through that channel. And we also expose the same through log analytics. So we have published a dashboard. You can go in and see where exactly your Copilot access for Security Copilot is happening across the world. And the next question that keeps coming up from our customers is, OK, this is all great, Dilip. How much is it going to cost me? I'm worried about who's using what, how expensive is these operations. So we have created a usage monitoring dashboard. So what you can do here is our customers use this to see how much are my manual, which teams are doing the most analysis, and how much is it cost, like in terms of SCUs that are getting used, the security consumption unit. And we also you can help track automations, which logic apps, which workflows are more expensive than others, and which ones need to be fine-tuned. So there's a lot of customers use this capability to go in and filter this experience and see which plugins they want to activate, which ones they don't. But it's really helping them with their budgeting and cost management. So if you still have issues, we're also working on a cost calculator based on the scenarios. So it will be good for getting feedback on like, what is this useful, and what are you really interested in from a cost management perspective. And building on that, now the Security Copilot is not just for the SOC persona. As I said, it's for a lot of other personas. So this is a feature that doesn't exist. We're actively working on it. All the other things I showed are already in GA or public preview. But this feature is called multi-workspace. It's coming in Q1 of calendar year 25. So what this will let you do is, again, going back to the customer feedback, I want to have more control on costs. So I can go in and define my own workspaces for my different teams. I can have my IT teams, my Purview teams, my London team, or my Singapore team. So create different workspace. And then you can go in and specify the capacity that they can use. So I can say, this team can have 3 SCUs. That's your max capacity. And if you do that, I can further go in and restrict what plugins are allowed within that workspace as well. So this is, again, very useful for you to manage how those services are being utilized within your enterprise. So it is all great that if we do this, but as I said, if it just works with Microsoft Stack and it is not beyond that, it's not as useful. Like as much, on an average, when I talk to my customers and CISOs, they have 50 different security tools. Some have 100. And all these data is siloed across this, and you have to go to different tools and portals. The real value of Security Copilot is how do I bring all the information together into one experience. So we have a huge ecosystem. Even at this conference, a lot of my meetings are all with partners who are wanting to onboard. So we have about 52 MSSP service partners, about 100 ISVs who have signed up and who have built different plugins. So these are across all areas. We have a whole bunch of threat intelligence partners who are feeding their signals into us. You have device network identity vendors who are partnering, like Jamf or Netscope, or I don't know, there's so many of them to name. And it's not just the small folks, it's like the larger enterprise players too. So I believe at this conference, Splunk team was doing a demo of a plugin with Security Copilot. We're actively working with ServiceNow on a joint plugin as well that some of our customers are trying out. So this partner ecosystem is growing. So you can rest assured that Security Copilot is a platform, not just a product. And to show that, I want to share an example with one of our partners, Aviatrix. I don't know if they're around. So what we did was I just want to show the experience, how it looks when a partner plugin works with Copilot. So you have these Microsoft plugins on top, and then you have the non-Microsoft. So you can see the whole library, a marketplace of those plugins, and you can go. In this case, Aviatrix built one in just 3 weeks. They were able to plug in their product into our portal. So you go set up and turn it on. What happens is then at that point, when I'm asking any question about Security Copilot, it might not even be specific to the product. I'm just asking, hey, tell me more about this vulnerability 48788. So it gives a list of things. It's a SQL injection vulnerability. You need to apply patches, especially to your firewall rules. So what happens is based on the number of products you have, in this case, I have Aviatrix plugin turned on. You could have different third-party plugins turned on. So what happens is those policies in those other products are also brought in. The information is brought in. So I didn't even leave the Security Copilot console. My analyst is looking at it and saying, OK, here are the firewall policies that we had turned on. And then there is no traffic on these ports, so which means I can go ahead and create a rule that is blocking the outbound traffic on this. That way, I've mitigated the incident. So just to wrap up here, and before I get Dorothy back on stage, is start your Copilot journey. AI is transforming SOC. So start today. When you get back, try a POC. We are happy to lean in and help. So work with your Microsoft account teams. If you have one, if you're a partner, talk to us. And if you're already using Sentinel, highly recommend you to take a look at Logic Apps plus Security Copilot. That combination is really working wonders for a lot of our customers. And then the third-party plugins, if you think you're using a security product that's not covered, let us know, and we'll go fix it. And then with that, I'll hand it back to Dorothy. Dorothy?
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Dilip. That was a lot to digest. And it also shows the pace of innovation we're driving with Security Copilot. And almost all of these innovations are driven by our customers. Speaking of customers, I want to bring on stage, there you are, Emily Longman, head of SOC for Oregon State. We're going to do a little fireside chat to talk about how Emily's team uses Security Copilot to protect the university. So Emily, let's take a seat, and let me go get my little cards of questions. Start off, I'm going to give you a softball. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, and the university.
I would love to. Yes, hello everyone. Like Dorothy said, I'm Emily Longman, and I work at Oregon State University. So I'm our SOC manager, and we do some pretty cool stuff, I like to think. So we have me as SOC manager, we have about 4 full-time employees, and then we have about 8 to 10 students under us. So we actually have a large student portion that makes up a lot of our SOC workforce. And they're definitely the ones that are kind of doing a lot of the in-the-weeds incident clearing in our Sentinel queue. We use Sentinel primarily, so we're one of the folks that Dilip was talking about that are very excited about the Sentinel integration still. And so we are responsible for the university's security, which includes quite a lot of research things, student things. We even have some research vessels that go out to sea. So there's quite a bit that we're securing, and I think it's pretty great.
Thank you. And Dilip shared a lot of use cases. Tell us about which use cases are driving the most impact for your particular needs.
There's quite a few. I think one of the most impactful ones for us so far, like I mentioned, because we're Sentinel users, the KQL query generation has been really helpful for us, especially since we have a lot of students, and they unfortunately tend to graduate, and so we have turnover. I wish I could keep them all because they're amazing. But when we're training them, learning KQL can be kind of difficult. It's not exactly a learn it in a week kind of a thing. And so that query generation has been really helpful for us in teaching them more quickly, giving us more capabilities to do searching in there, create some workbooks. We're super excited about the integration with Logic Apps because we've used quite a few of those to create some automation in our SOC. So those are things that are really helpful, but even just kind of the incident summaries on the side or the suggested actions has been really helpful. So we've seen really help from pretty much all of that.
Yeah, we definitely see a lot of those. It's a pretty typical use pattern amongst customers as well. So after all this, are you seeing it actually driving an outcome? How does it actually drive the outcome in your security outcomes?
I would say for us, it definitely reduces our time to respond and time to detect. You mentioned earlier, previous to this, folks are often seeing about 3 hours almost spent on incidents manually. And that was pretty true for us before we started using Security Copilot, which we got to be part of the early access program. So almost a year ago, we started using it, which was super exciting. And so I would say one of the biggest outcomes is that it's really sped us up. If anyone here also uses Sentinel, you've probably seen unfamiliar sign-in properties. We see a lot of those, and they tend to be benign positives, so it's really helped speed us up, clearing those out more quickly, having those summaries on the side so students can learn more quickly what's going on without having to learn how to dig through it. So that makes us a lot quicker on our feet and gives us more analyst time to focus on the ones that really do need about 3 hours of investigation and the true positives.
Right, exactly. In all these features that Dilip shared earlier, what are you most excited about?
Like I said, probably the Sentinel integrations, because we are still in that. We are moving towards the unified portal, but it's so helpful. But really, all those features are great for us. I feel like pretty much all of them can be applied. But yes, because we use logic apps quite a bit, we're tied to them, we love them, they've helped so much of our automation. I'm super excited to put some prompt books in there and kind of make that even faster, as well as actually some of the third-party integrations. So we've just moved to ServiceNow. We're hoping to apply some Copilot to that too, because we're SOC analysts, we don't want to write out all the ticket information, we just want to go back to analyzing. So.
Yeah. So for those in the audience, if you would give them advice on how to get started, what would be some of your advice?
I would say probably if you haven't already tried Security Copilot, don't be afraid to take the plunge. It was immediate return on investment for us. We didn't have a full threat intel feed before that, so like they mentioned, you actually get Microsoft Security's threat intel feed for free with that. So for us, that was a huge bonus, just that. But also just the immediate out-of-the-box bonuses of having those incident summaries on the side, the suggested actions really sped us up, and we didn't have to do much work to learn how to use those. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then in that meantime, we can improve our own prompt engineering and find the best use cases that we really wanted to dig into and apply and put Copilot to as much work as we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emily. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, Emily Longman.
Thanks,
I love hearing stories like Emily and Oregon State University, and hopefully it resonates with many of you as well. As you think about preparing your own organization, whether you have lots of junior SOC, or you have senior SOC, or even if you manage your SOC, or you have lots of data security, you need to think about using AI to help secure your data, to help protect all of the AI copilots in your own organization. There are a few good practices that we find that are useful as customers start to adopt AI. And I'll share those 3 themes with you today. And first is, we've got to establish AI literacy in your team, right? So prompt engineering is a skill, but it takes time to mature. I was at a panel yesterday where I think the head of CTO BlueVoyant shared that he thinks about prompt engineering almost as a way, almost like parenting. At first, I was scratching my head, but it's really about having clarity and think about how do you get the most out of the AI models. So establish that literacy and get your team started thinking about prompt engineering. And second, definitely integrate AI into your own security processes. As Emily shared, that in their university, they have all these student analysts, and so she thinks about how do I become more efficient? How do I get my new students to be able to get up to speed faster? So if that's one of your objectives, make sure that is integrated into your overall goals. And last but not least, really establish this framework so you can have a continuous assessment process to think about how AI is driving that impact, and have a quantitative metrics that you can evaluate as well. And in our conversations with customers, we know that this is a journey, and what you want to do at the very beginning is find a use case that resonates, that is critical for your organization, and get started to establish some successes and get your teams used to the concepts. You can get started as little as just 1 SCU. Well, my slides here are actually out of sync. Sorry about that. You can get started with as little as 1 SCU that'll get you started with embedded experience and move up to do logic apps or automation. And here is a bunch of resources that we can help you get started. So the future is yours, and we are just here to support you. Thank you.